The screenshot appeared on my phone at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, one of those moments where time fragments into before and after. My daughter Rachel had sent it by accident. I could tell because 30 seconds later, another message arrived. "Mom, sorry that wasn't for you. Please forget it." Forget it. As if I could unsee the words glowing on my screen. As if I could unknow what my own son had written in a family group chat I didn't even know existed. "We think it's better for Mom to step back for now. We need space as a family to heal." Brandon, and underneath, bright and green and somehow louder than words, Ashley's thumbs up emoji. My daughter-in-law's silent approval of my exclusion. Her digital celebration of my removal from the family I had built, fed, and funded for 15 years. I read it 3 times. The letters didn't change. The thumb stayed green, cheerful, mocking. My hands were steady as I opened the original family group chat, the one I was still technically part of, though clearly not for long. My fingers moved across the keyboard with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. No hesitation, no second-guessing, just the cold, perfect truth. Understood. I will respect that and step back from paying the house mortgage and the $5,000 monthly transfers. Enter, sent. I turned off my phone, poured myself a glass of wine, something I rarely did in the middle of the week, in the middle of the afternoon. I sat in the armchair by the window, the same one my husband David used to occupy every Sunday morning with his coffee and newspaper, back when we were building a life instead of me funding other people's. The wine trembled slightly in my hand, not from fear, from power, from the strange, exhilarating sensation of having finally, after 72 years, learned how to say no. But let me tell you how I got here. How a woman who gave everything ended up being kicked out with 16 words and an emoji. And how that woman finally learned that love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's self-destruction. I should have seen it coming the first night I met Ashley. Brandon brought her home on a crisp October evening, leaves crunching under their feet as they walked up the driveway. His eyes had that shine, the one I remembered from his childhood, when he'd found something precious and couldn't wait to show me. "Mom, she's the one," he said before she'd even crossed the threshold. I believed him. God help me, I believed him completely. I made a special dinner that night. Roasted chicken with herbs from my garden, the garlic mashed potatoes Brandon had loved since he was 6 fresh green beans and apple pie. David's recipe, the one I'd perfected after he died 5 years earlier. I got out the good wine glasses, the ones we'd saved for celebrations. Ashley smiled at everything, complimented the house, the food, my hair, my dress. She called me Mom Melissa before the salad course was finished, and when she hugged me goodnight, she held on just a beat longer than necessary. "I've never met anyone as warm as you," she said, her voice catching slightly. "My own mother was never... Well, I'm just grateful Brandon found you. Found us." I melted, completely stupidly melted. What I didn't notice, what I was too charmed to see, was the way her eyes had flickered over the framed photos on the mantel, lingering on the one of David and me standing in front of this house the day we paid off the mortgage. I didn't catch how she'd asked, seemingly casual, about what I did for work, how long I'd been a freelance accountant, whether I planned to retire soon. "Oh, not for a while," I'd said, laughing. "I enjoy the work, and the income is good steady, you know. Gives me security." "That must be such a relief," Ashley had said, squeezing my hand. "To not have to worry about money, to be able to help family when they need it." I thought it was empathy. I didn't realize it was reconnaissance. 6 months later, I wrote a check for $3,000 for Ashley's wedding dress. It was ivory lace, fitted at the bodice with a cathedral train that whispered against the floor of the bridal shop. Ashley had cried when she tried it on, and the saleswoman had looked at me expectantly. "It's the one," I'd said, reaching for my purse. "Mom, Melissa, I can't let you..." Ashley had started. "Nonsense. Every bride deserves the dress of her dreams." I signed the check with a flourish, feeling generous, feeling needed, feeling like I was gaining a daughter after years of having only sons. That check was just the beginning. The flowers, $2,000 for peonies and garden roses, because Ashley had always dreamed of a romantic garden-inspired wedding. The venue, $8,000 for the country club overlooking the lake, because it's where Brandon proposed Mom Melissa. It means so much to us. Half the catering, $6,000, because Ashley's parents are going through a tough time financially. They want to contribute, but they just can't right now. I met Ashley's parents exactly once before the wedding. They seemed nice enough, quiet, a bit uncomfortable in their department store clothes among the country club set. Ashley's father was a retired postal worker. Her mother had worked part-time at a library. "We're so grateful," her mother had said, gripping my hands. "You've been so generous. We wish we could do more, but—" "Please," I'd interrupted, meaning it. "Brandon loves Ashley. That makes her family. And family helps family." Those words would echo back to me years later, hollow and mocking. The wedding was beautiful. I have pictures, hundreds of them, stored on my computer, each one a monument to my own willing blindness. Brandon and Ashley glowing at the altar. The first dance. The cake cutting. Me standing slightly off to the side in every group photo, always present but never quite centered. Ashley's maid of honor had given a toast that made everyone laugh and cry. "Ashley has always known what she wanted," she'd said, "and she's never been afraid to go after it." Everyone had clapped. I'd raised my glass with the rest of them, not understanding that I was already part of what Ashley wanted. Not a daughter, a resource. A year after the wedding, Ashley got pregnant. I got the call at work on a Tuesday morning. Brandon's voice was vibrating with excitement, barely contained joy. "Mom, we found it! The perfect house!" I saved my spreadsheet, gave my full attention to the phone. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Where is it?" "Maple Ridge. That new development. It's got 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, a backyard, perfect for kids. Mom, there's even a room that could be a nursery with windows overlooking the garden." "It sounds perfect. There's just one thing." His voice changed, became younger, somehow more tentative. The boy asking for help, not the man who should have been standing on his own feet. "We need help with the down payment. The bank wants 20% and we just don't have it. Not with the baby coming and Ashley wanting to take maternity leave." I had sold the condo David and I bought when we were newlyweds. It was too full of memories, too empty of him. The money had been sitting in my savings account for 18 months, earning a modest interest, waiting for what retirement emergency, some undefined future need. "How much do you need?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. 40,000. It was every penny I'd saved from the condo sale. Every penny David and I had scrimped and sacrificed for living in a small 2-bedroom apartment for the first decade of our marriage, saving every spare dollar so we could eventually buy our forever home. I thought about my first grandchild growing up in a good neighborhood, in a house with a backyard where they could play safely. I thought about Brandon's voice, so full of hope and excitement. "Okay," I said. "Really, Mom? Are you sure we'll pay you back? As soon as we're on our feet, I promise." "I know you will, sweetheart." I didn't know that I'd just purchased my own slow-motion heartbreak for $40,000. The closing was quick. Ashley had hugged me at the real estate office, tears streaming down her face. "You're an angel, Mom, Melissa. I don't know what we'd do without you." She was 8 months pregnant, radiant in a flowing dress that emphasized her belly. I remember thinking how beautiful she looked, how lucky I was to have this young woman in my life, how blessed to be needed. I didn't know that need and love were about to become confused in ways I wouldn't recognize for years. Emma arrived in April, 7 pounds 6 ounces, with Brandon's dark hair and Ashley's delicate features. I was at the hospital within an hour of the call, held my granddaughter for the first time with tears running down my face. "She's perfect," I whispered. Ashley, exhausted and radiant in the hospital bed, had smiled. "She's lucky to have you as a grandmother. We all are." 2 months later, Brandon called again. "Mom, we need to talk." I was in my home office working on a client's quarterly taxes. I set down my pen, gave him my full attention. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong exactly. It's just, the mortgage is higher than we thought it would be. With the baby and all the expenses, diapers, formula, doctor visits, we're really stretched thin. Ashley wants to go back to work part-time, but daycare costs more than she'd make, so she's staying home for now." "That makes sense," I said carefully. "The thing is, we're about $300 short every month, just for the mortgage. And I was thinking, could you help? Just until Ashley goes back to work full-time, just until we get on our feet, just until—" Those 2 words would define the next 5 years of my life. "How much do you need?" "If you could cover $1,200 a month, that would make the difference. Just for a few months, Mom. I promise." I worked the numbers in my head. $1,200 a month wouldn't break me. I made good money as a freelance accountant, not wealthy but comfortable. And they were my children, my blood, my future. "Okay," I said. "Hey, Ed, I'll set up an automatic transfer." "You're a lifesaver, Mom. Thank you." The first few months became a year. 1 year became 2, then 3, then 5. 60 months of $1,200, $72,000, and that was just the mortgage. I started tracking it in year 3, though I didn't realize that's what I was doing at the time. I just kept a running note on my computer, a simple spreadsheet really listing the transfers and their purposes. January 2013. Car repair emergency, $800. March 2013. Medical bills for Emma, $1,200. June 2013. Ashley's mother's surgery, $2,000. September 2013. New refrigerator, old one died, $1,500. November 2013. Christmas for Emma, special request, $600. And on, and on, and on. I didn't mind. I told myself I didn't mind. This is what grandmothers did, what mothers did. We gave. We sacrificed. We made life easier for our children so they could thrive. The invitations to visit, though, became fewer and fewer. The baby's sick. We have plans. Ashley needs to rest. It's not a good weekend. But when they needed money, I was always available, always ready, always the solution to every financial crisis, real or manufactured. My daughter Rachel noticed first. We were having lunch at a cafe downtown, one of our monthly mother-daughter dates that I treasured. She was telling me about her new job in marketing, her husband Kyle's progress on his IT certifications, when she paused mid-sentence. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course, honey." "How much are you giving Brandon?" I tried to keep my face neutral. "Why do you ask?" "Because Kyle and I are struggling to save for a house, and yesterday Brandon was posting Instagram stories from some fancy restaurant. He and Ashley were celebrating their anniversary with a wine that cost more than our weekly grocery budget." I didn't have an answer for that. Rachel had reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're too good to us, Mom. All of us. We need to stand on our own feet more." But 2 weeks later, Rachel called with her own crisis. Kyle wanted to take a coding boot camp to advance his career, but it cost $2,500. Could I help just this once? Of course I helped. I decided to speak up in July, 15 years after Ashley entered our lives. It was hot, one of those oppressive summer evenings where the air feels thick enough to chew. I'd invited everyone to my house for dinner. Brandon, Ashley, and the kids. Rachel, Kyle, and their 2 children. I cooked all day. Pot roast the way David used to make it. Mashed potatoes with real butter and cream. Green beans from the farmer's market. Apple pie cooling on the counter, filling the house with cinnamon and promise. They arrived in stages. Rachel and her family first, Kyle carrying a bottle of wine I knew I'd bought him money for last month. Then Brandon and Ashley, Emma, now 16, and beautiful Noah, 10, and energetic, darting around the house before being corralled. We ate, we laughed. The kids told stories about school and summer camp. It felt for a moment like a real family dinner, like something whole and healthy and good. I waited until dessert was served, until everyone had a slice of pie in front of them before I spoke. "I need to talk to you all about something important." The conversation stuttered to a stop. Everyone looked at me, Brandon with a raised eyebrow, Ashley with her fork halfway to her mouth, Rachel curious and slightly concerned. "I've been thinking," I continued, my voice steadier than I felt, "that it's time for you all to become more financially independent." The silence that followed was absolute. Not the comfortable quiet of family, but the shocked stillness of people who've just heard something they can't quite process. Brandon set his fork down carefully. "What does that mean, Mom?" "It means I need to think about my future, too. I'm 72 years old. I'm not going to work forever, and you're not children anymore. You're both established in your careers, both capable adults. Maybe it's time for me to take a step back." Ashley let out a short laugh, sharp, bitter. "So now you're tired of helping us after everything we've done for you." I froze. The words landed like ice water. Everything they'd done for me. "What do you mean?" I asked slowly. "Mom, we include you in our lives." Rachel jumped in, her voice defensive. "We visit. We invite you to things. We count on you. You can't just cut us off like this. We have expenses, obligations. Count on you, as if I were a utility, a service, a renewable resource." "I didn't say I'd cut you off," I explained, trying to stay calm. "I'm just saying we need to make a plan for you to become self-sufficient. Both of you have good jobs. You've been stable for years. You can handle your own expenses." Kyle shook his head. "This is really selfish, Melissa." Selfish, that word. After 15 years of giving everything, sacrificing everything, being available at every financial emergency, that word landed in my stomach like a stone. Brandon stood up from the table. I think you're changing, Mom. You're not the same person anymore. Ashley nodded vigorously. It's true. You're becoming bitter, negative. It's not healthy. The dinner ended in tension. They left early before helping clean up before proper goodbyes. Just gathered their things and filtered out, leaving me alone with dirty dishes and a silence that hurt more than any shouting match could have. I stood in my kitchen, the kitchen I'd cooked 1,000 meals in, the kitchen David and I had remodeled with our own hands 30 years ago, and felt something crack inside my chest. Not my heart breaking. Something different. The sound of a cage door opening. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, watching shadows shift as cars passed on the street below. My mind ran in circles, examining the dinner from every angle. Had I been selfish? Was I wrong to ask them to be independent? Was it my duty as a mother to keep giving until I had nothing left? David's voice came to me in the dark, not real, just memory, but so clear it made my chest ache. Mel, you can't save everyone. Sometimes people need to save themselves. He'd said that to me years ago when his brother had asked for money for the 3rd time in 6 months. I'd wanted to help. David had said no firmly and had refused to discuss it further. They'll never learn if we keep rescuing them, he'd explained later. Sometimes love means letting people face consequences. I'd been angry at him then. Thought he was being harsh, uncharitable. Now, alone in our bed, I finally understood. I got up at 3 a.m, made tea I didn't drink, sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and opened my banking records. I spent 4 hours going through 15 years of transactions. Every automatic transfer, every emergency payment, every request that I'd responded to without question, without thought, without ever asking if it was truly an emergency or just convenient. When I finished, I had a number that made my hands shake. $243,000. $243,000. I'd given them more than the value of my first house. More than David and I had earned in the first decade of our marriage combined. More than some people saw in a lifetime. And when I asked for a little consideration, a little independence for them and rest for me, I was selfish, bitter, negative. I closed the laptop, made a fresh cup of tea, and sat watching the sun rise through my kitchen window, feeling something new take root in my chest. Not anger, not even hurt anymore, just clarity, cold, perfect clarity. They had used me for 15 years, and now that I dared to set a boundary, just one boundary, I became the problem. I picked up my phone and opened a new note, typed out a list 1, call bank, cancel automatic transfers 2, remove myself as co-signer on Brandon's mortgage 3, cancel authorized user cards 4, close joint account with Brandon 5, review will 6, find therapist 7, call Diane's sister. I stared at the list for a long time. It felt both terrifying and necessary, like standing at the edge of a cliff and realizing that jumping was the only way forward. The next few days were strange. Michael Brandon didn't answer my calls. Rachel replied with short, cold texts. Busy, Mom, talk later, as if I were a nuisance, as if asking for a little consideration had transformed me from mother into enemy. I tried to explain. Sent long messages, called, insisted. Nothing worked. The ice between us grew thicker every day, and I started to feel something I'd never felt with my children before. Fear of losing them, fear of being alone, fear that my honesty had broken something irreparable. But underneath the fear, something else was growing, something harder, more resilient. The knowledge that I had been right, and that being right in this case meant being ready to lose everything. The call came exactly 1 week after the dinner. I was in my office working on a client's books when my phone rang. Ashley's name lit up the screen. My heart jumped, stupid, hopeful heart that still believed in reconciliation. Ashley, hi. I'm so glad you... Mom, Melissa, we need to talk. Her voice was serious, formal. Like we were in a business meeting, not family. Of course, what's going on? Brandon and I have been talking about what you said last week, and we think... She paused. We think you've been very negative lately. Your comments about money made us feel bad, as if everything you did for us was a burden. I gripped the phone tighter. Ashley, I never said it was a burden. I just asked that we think about the future. She sighed that condescending sigh people use when they think you're not understanding something obvious. The problem is your energy, Mom Melissa. The kids feel it. We feel it. All this negativity, this sudden coldness. We don't want that around our family. I sat very still. Are you saying you don't want me around your family? I'm saying we need some space, some time for you to work on yourself, maybe talk to someone about why you're feeling this way. And then when you're in a better place, we can reconnect. Work on myself. Talk to someone. As if I were the problem. As if 15 years of sacrifice and 72 years of life had led to this moment where I was the one who needed fixing. I see, I said quietly. I'm glad you understand. This is really for the best, Mom Melissa. For everyone. I hung up without saying goodbye, sat in my office chair, surrounded by orderly stacks of receipts and ledgers, by the organized proof of other people's financial lives, and felt something inside me die. Not my love for them. That remained stubborn and painful. But the part of me that believed I could be enough by giving enough. The part that thought sacrifice was the same as love. The part that confused being needed with being valued. That part died quietly without drama, like a candle burning out. I called my sister Diane that night. I need advice, I said when she answered. What happened? Her voice immediately sharpened with concern. Are you okay? I told her everything. 15 years compressed into 30 minutes. Every dollar, every sacrifice, every excuse, every time I said yes when I wanted to say no. The dinner, Ashley's call, the word selfish echoing in my head like an accusation. When I finished, there was a long silence. Diane, are you still there? I'm here. Her voice was strange, thick with something I couldn't identify. I'm trying to figure out how to say this without sounding harsh. Just say it. You should have done this 15 years ago. The words hit me like cold water. Melissa, I love you. But you've been enabling them for over a decade. You taught them that Mom is a bank, that love means money, that they never have to stand on their own because you'll always be there to catch them. And now you're surprised that they're angry when you want to stop. I was helping my children. No, you were buying their presents, and the price just went up again. I wanted to argue, wanted to defend myself. But I couldn't because somewhere deep down I knew she was right. What do? I whispered. You do what you should have done 15 years ago. You set boundaries, real ones, and you stick to them even when they try to manipulate you, even when they make you feel guilty, even when they cut you off. She paused. Because they will try all of those things. I'm afraid of losing them. Honey, if they're only in your life for your money, you already lost them. You just haven't accepted it yet. We talked for another hour. Diane told me about her own experience setting boundaries with her children, how hard it was, how necessary, how it eventually led to real relationships, not transactional ones. When we hung up, I felt both worse and better. Worse because the truth hurt. Better because I wasn't alone in seeing it. I opened my laptop, pulled up my banking app, stared at the automatic transfers that had been running for years like clockwork, like obligation, like proof of love. $1,200 to Brandon's account for the mortgage. $2,500 split between both kids for expenses. I clicked through to the transfer management page. My cursor hovered over Cancel All. I thought about Emma, about Noah, about Rachel's kids, about whether I was being cruel, whether I was overreacting, whether a real mother would just keep giving. Then I thought about David's voice in the dark. Sometimes people need to save themselves. I clicked Cancel All. Then I called the bank about the mortgage, about the authorized credit cards, about the joint account I'd forgotten I'd opened. One by one, I dismantled 15 years of financial entanglement. And when I was done, when every automatic payment had been stopped, every card canceled, every shared access removed, I felt something I hadn't felt in over a decade. Not happiness, not relief, just space, room to breathe. The absence of a weight I'd carried so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand upright. I went to bed that night without guilt, without second-guessing. I slept for 10 hours straight. And when I woke up, the sun was streaming through my window, and I felt for the first time in years like I was ready to begin living my own life instead of funding everyone else's. The 3 days after I canceled everything were the quietest of my life. Not peaceful quiet. There's a difference. Peace is chosen. This quiet was imposed a holding of breath before the storm, the moment when you've lit the fuse and are waiting for the explosion. I went about my days with an eerie calm. Monday morning, I made my coffee in the French press David had given me for our 30th anniversary. I sat on my small balcony and watched the neighborhood wake up Mr. Patterson walking his ancient terrier, the Johnsons backing out of their driveway in their matching SUVs, the mail carrier making her rounds with mechanical precision. Normal life continuing as if I hadn't just set fire to 15 years of financial entanglement. I worked. I had clients who depended on me, deadlines that didn't care about family drama, numbers that needed reconciling, tax forms that needed filing. There was something soothing about the orderliness of accounting, the way everything had to balance, the way every debit required a credit. If only family worked that way, if only love could be calculated, verified, reconciled. Tuesday, I cleaned my house from top to bottom, not because it was dirty, but because I needed to move to do something physical, to prove to myself that I was still here, still real, still capable. I found things I'd forgotten about. A birthday card from Brandon when he was 8, to the best mom in the world. Emma's first drawing, framed and tucked in a closet, stick figures labeled Daddy, Mommy, and Grandma, with a bright yellow sun overhead. Rachel's college graduation photo, her arm around my shoulders, both of us grinning at the camera. Evidence of a family that once was. Or maybe evidence of a family that never was, and I'd just been too blind to see it. Wednesday, my neighbor Robert knocked on my door. He was 73, a widower like me, someone I'd waved to for years but never really talked to beyond pleasantries about the weather and the neighborhood association's latest decree about lawn maintenance. "Melissa," he said when I opened the door, his face creased with concern. "Forgive me for sticking my nose where it doesn't belong, but I've noticed you're alone a lot lately. Is everything all right?" Something about his genuine concern, the kindness in his weathered face, made my carefully constructed composure crack slightly. "It's a long story," I said. "I've got time," he replied. "And coffee if you'd like to come over. Or I can leave you be if you prefer." I should have said no. Should have maintained my privacy, my dignity, my careful distance from a world that suddenly felt hostile. Instead, I said, "Actually, coffee sounds nice." Robert's house was a mirror image of mine. Same layout, different furniture. The ghost of a woman's touch in the curtains and the throw pillows slowly fading under years of living alone. We sat at his kitchen table with strong coffee and store-bought cookies, and I told him an abbreviated version of my story. Not everything. Not the full 15 years. Just enough. "I've been helping my children financially for a long time," I said carefully. "And when I suggested they become more independent, they didn't take it well." Robert nodded slowly. "How much? I'm sorry. How much did you give them total?" No one had asked me that before. Not directly, not with such straightforward curiosity. $243,000, I said. The number felt obscene, spoken aloud in someone else's kitchen. "Over 15 years. Robert let out a low whistle. "And they think you're the problem for wanting to stop. They say I've changed, become negative, selfish." He was quiet for a long moment, stirring his coffee, though he'd already added cream and sugar. When he looked up, his eyes were sad but knowing. "I made the opposite mistake," he said. "I let my son drain me until there was nothing left. Not just money, everything. My time, my energy, my peace of mind. Told myself it was love, that's what fathers do. My wife tried to stop me, but I wouldn't listen." "What happened?" "He died 3 years ago. Car accident. He was drunk driving a car I'd bought him because he'd wrecked the last 3. He left me with $40,000 in debts I didn't know about and a whole mountain of regrets." Robert's voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly. "I don't regret helping him, Melissa. I regret that I helped him stay helpless. I regret that I never let him fall, never let him learn that actions have consequences." "I'm afraid of losing them," I whispered. "I know. But here's what I learned. If they're only in your life for what you can give them, you've already lost them. You just don't know it yet." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "The question isn't whether you'll lose them. It's whether you'll lose yourself, trying to keep them." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, 2 old people who'd learned hard lessons too late, finding unexpected companionship in shared pain. When I left, Robert hugged me at the door, the first genuine ask-nothing hug I'd received in months. "You did the right thing," he said. "Don't let them make you doubt that." I walked back to my house with my shoulders a little straighter, my resolve a little firmer. The screenshot arrived at 3:47 p.m. on Thursday, 11 days after the dinner, 3 days after I'd canceled everything. I was working in my office halfway through a client's quarterly report when my phone buzzed on the desk beside me. Rachel's name appeared on the screen with a photo attachment. I almost didn't open it. Something in my gut twisted with warning, with the premonition that whatever was in that image would change everything. I opened it anyway. It was a screenshot of a group chat I'd never seen before. Harper Family, it was called, with a little house emoji. The participants were listed at the top: Brandon, Ashley, Rachel, Kyle. Not me. Never me. The most recent messages were visible: Brandon. We think it's better for Mom to step back for now. We need space as a family to heal. Ashley, that emoji. Green, bright, cheerful. A thumbs up like you'd give to a good restaurant recommendation or a funny meme. Not like you were approving the exclusion of the woman who'd given you everything. I stared at that little green thumb until it blurred, until it burned itself into my retina, until I could see it when I closed my eyes. My phone buzzed again. Rachel's follow-up message. Mom, sorry that wasn't for you. Please forget it. Forget it. Forget that my son had created a family group chat without me. Forget that they'd all been part of it all, complicit in my exclusion. Forget that green thumb, that casual approval of my removal from the family I'd built, fed, and funded. Forget it as if it were an accidentally forwarded joke, not the visual proof that I was exactly what I'd feared: an outsider in my own family. An ATM with feelings they found inconvenient. My hands were steady as I opened the original family group chat, the one I was technically still part of, though clearly not for long. The one where we'd shared birthday wishes and holiday plans and photos of the grandchildren. My fingers moved across the screen with absolute clarity. No hesitation, no second guessing, just cold, perfect truth. Understood. I will respect that and step back from paying the house mortgage and the $5,000 monthly transfers. I read it 3 times before hitting send. Made sure there were no typos, no emotional outbursts, no pleading or anger. Just facts. Professional. Final. Enter. Sent. I turned off my phone. The silence that followed was absolute. I gave myself 2 hours before I turned my phone back on. 2 hours to sit in my armchair, drink my wine, watch the sun set through my window, and feel something like freedom settling into my bones. When I finally powered up my phone, it exploded. 23 missed calls, 42 text messages, 7 voicemails, 3 emails, all within 2 hours. I made myself read them all. Every desperate message, every attempt at manipulation, every word that proved I'd been right about everything. Brandon, Mom, I need you to talk to me. This is a misunderstanding. Please call me right now. Brandon, Mom, call me. Brandon, this is ridiculous. We need to talk about this like adults. Ashley, Mom, Melissa, you can't do this. We have obligations. You can't just leave us high and dry like this. The mortgage payment is due in 2 weeks. Ashley, do you know what you're doing to us, to your grandchildren? How can you be so cruel? Rachel, Mom, please understand that message was a mistake. It wasn't meant to be seen like that. We were just frustrated. Rachel, you're overreacting. Can we please talk about this? Kyle, Melissa, this is very impulsive. You need to think this through. You can't just cut off your family because your feelings got hurt. Not one of them said I'm sorry. Not one of them acknowledged the pain they'd caused. Not one of them asked how I felt. Only panic. Only fear. Only the desperation of people watching their comfort crumble. I listened to the voicemails. Brandon's voice getting progressively more frantic, more angry. Ashley's tears that sounded performative even through the phone. Rachel trying to sound reasonable while clearly panicking underneath. The last voicemail was 20 minutes long. Brandon rambling, trying to explain, trying to justify, trying to make me understand that I was destroying everything. Mom, I don't understand what's gotten into you. We've always had this arrangement. You've always been there for us. That's what family does. They help each other. You helped us because you wanted to, right? Nobody forced you. So why are you acting like we did something wrong? We're just living our lives trying to provide for our kids, and you're making it about you. That's not fair, Mom. That's not what you taught us. I played it twice, listening for any recognition of their own responsibility, any acknowledgement of my humanity beyond my usefulness. There was none. I opened a new message to the group chat. Typed carefully, it's not impulsive, it's a well-thought-out decision. You asked for space. I'm giving it to you. But real space includes financial independence. I wish you the best. Period. No emojis. No exclamation points. No drama. Just facts. Cold, clear, non-negotiable facts. Send. Immediately, my phone started ringing. Brandon's name lit up the screen. I declined the call. It rang again. Ashley this time. Declined. Rachel. Declined. Kyle. Declined. Each declined call was an act of self-love. Each silence I chose was a shout of dignity. Each boundary I maintained was a brick in the wall I was building around my peace of mind. I was not going to give explanations. I was not going to justify myself. I was not going to beg for a place in their lives. If they wanted me out, I would be out. But on my own terms. The email arrived 3 days later on a Sunday morning. I was having coffee on my balcony watching the neighborhood wake up when my phone chimed with a new message. The sender was l.patterson@email.com, no name I recognized. Subject line, something you should know. My first instinct was to delete it. Spam, probably. Or worse, another family member creating a fake account to guilt-trip me. But something made me open it. Dear Mrs. Harper, my name is Linda Patterson. You don't know me, but I was Ashley's roommate in college. We lost touch after graduation, but I ran into her at a coffee shop about 6 weeks ago. We caught up over coffee and she told me about her life, her husband, her kids, her difficult mother-in-law. I didn't think much of it at the time. Everyone complains about in-laws, right? But then she said something that's been bothering me ever since. She laughed and said, I've been training Brandon to distance from his mom since year 2. It's finally working. I was shocked. I asked what she meant, and she said, and I'm quoting here because it stuck with me, she's too controlling, always trying to be involved. But the money thing is perfect leverage. We take it, then make her feel guilty for giving it. She'll pull back eventually, and when she does, we'll have the perfect excuse to cut her off. Win-win, Mrs. Harper. I felt sick hearing this. I know we don't know each other, but I found your information through Facebook. Ashley had posted a photo of your family last year, and your name was tagged. I don't know the full situation, and maybe I shouldn't get involved, but if someone was manipulating my family member like this, I'd want to know. I've attached a screenshot of a text message Ashley sent me the day after our coffee bragging about how the plan is working. I thought you deserved to see it. I'm sorry for whatever pain this causes, but I thought you should know the truth. Sincerely, Linda Patterson. My hands were shaking as I opened the attachment. The screenshot showed a text conversation. Ashley, update on the MIL situation. B finally agreed we need space from his mom. Told her we need to heal as a family. She'll probably cut off the money finally. Then we get to play the victim and keep our distance. 2 birds, 1 stone. Linda, Ash, that seems harsh. Isn't she helping you guys out? Ashley, helping is one thing. Using money to maintain control is another. This way we get freedom and sympathy from everyone. Trust me, this is better for everyone. I read it 5 times, 10 times, until the words lost meaning and became just shapes on a screen, proof of a betrayal so calculated it took my breath away. Ashley hadn't just been ungrateful. She'd been strategic, manipulative. She'd weaponized my generosity, turned my love into a tool to isolate me from my own son. And Brandon, had he known? Had he been part of this? Or was he just another victim of Ashley's manipulation? I didn't know which option hurt more. I sat on my balcony for an hour, not moving, not thinking, just feeling the enormity of it settle into my bones. Then I did 3 things. First, I forwarded the email to my personal account from 3 different devices, making sure I had backup copies that couldn't be deleted or lost. Second, I printed the email and the screenshot on my home printer, added them to the gray folder that already contained 15 years of financial documentation. Third, I sent Linda a brief reply. Linda, thank you for your courage in reaching out. You've given me confirmation of something I suspected but couldn't prove. I'm grateful for your integrity. If you're willing, I may need you to verify this information at some point. But I understand if you'd prefer to stay out of it. Thank you again. Melissa Harper. Her reply came within an hour. Mrs. Harper, I'll help however I can. What Ashley is doing is wrong, and I'm ashamed I didn't speak up sooner. I'm here if you need me. Linda, I sat back the printed email in my hands and felt something new take root where the hurt had been. Not anger, not even vindication, just absolute crystalline clarity. I hadn't been imagining things. I hadn't been oversensitive or negative or bitter. I had been targeted, used, manipulated by someone who saw my love as a weapon to be deployed against me. And now I had proof. The messages continued evolving in tone as days passed without response from me. By the second week, the panic had shifted to guilt tripping. Brandon: Mom, the kids are asking about you. Emma wants to know why Grandma doesn't love them anymore. How do I explain this to them? Using my grandchildren as weapons. Classic. Rachel: I can't believe you're doing this right when Kyle is going through a tough time at work. He might get laid off. We needed you, Mom. There was always a crisis. Always perfect timing for why I couldn't set boundaries now. Ashley: She sent a photo. Emma and Noah sitting on their couch faces arranged in exaggerated sadness. The caption: They don't understand why their grandmother abandoned them. I studied that photo for a long time. The kids' expressions were coached. I could see Ashley's hand in their downturned mouths, their theatrical slumped shoulders. Emma, 16 years old enough to know she was being used as a prop. I didn't respond. Instead, I called my sister Diane. They're not stopping, I told her. They won't, she said. Not until they realize you're serious, and maybe not even then. Ashley's been manipulating Brandon for years. I have proof. I told her about Linda's email, about the screenshot, about the casual cruelty of win-win. Diane was quiet for a long moment. Are you going to tell Brandon? I don't know. Part of me wants to. Part of me thinks it doesn't matter he chose her, chose to treat me like an ATM. He might not have known. He knew enough, I said. He knew he was putting his wife's comfort above his mother's humanity. He knew he was using me. Maybe Ashley orchestrated it, but he participated willingly. So what are you going to do? Wait, I said. Let them stew. Let them feel the consequences. And if they come to me ready to have a real conversation, ready to acknowledge what they've done, then maybe we can talk. And if they don't, then I have my answer about what I really mean to them. Brandon appeared at my door on a Tuesday evening 3 weeks after the screenshot. I'd just finished dinner, a simple salad, some grilled chicken, a glass of wine. I was washing dishes when the doorbell rang, insistent and urgent. Through the peephole, I could see him. Alone. No Ashley, no kids. Just my son, hands shoved in his pockets, looking thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under his eyes. I could have pretended I wasn't home. Could have let him ring and eventually give up. Instead, I dried my hands and opened the door. Mom? His voice cracked slightly on the word. Brandon, can I come in? Please. I stepped aside. He entered like he was walking into a stranger's home, carefully, uncertainly taking in the familiar space, as if seeing it for the first time. We sat in the living room, me in my armchair, him on the sofa perched on the edge like he might need to run at any moment. The silence stretched between us, heavy with everything unsaid. Mom, he started finally, this has gotten out of control. I waited. That message, the group chat, it wasn't what it looked like. Ashley was upset. I was frustrated. We didn't mean it the way it sounded. What did you mean then? He faltered. We thought maybe some space would be good. You seemed stressed, and we didn't want to add to it. By excluding me from the family group chat and asking me to step back, when you put it like that, that's exactly what happened, Brandon. I'm not putting any spin on it. I'm just stating the facts. He rubbed his face with both hands. You don't understand the pressure we're under. The mortgage, the kids' expenses, Ashley's student loans we're still paying off. You can't just stand on your own feet, support your own family with your own income. It's not that simple? It is exactly that simple. I kept my voice level, calm. Brandon, in 15 years, I've given you over $200,000. I paid your mortgage for 5 years. I've covered every emergency without question. And when I asked, not demanded, asked for you to work toward independence, I became the villain. You didn't just ask Mom. You cut us off. Cold. No warning. I gave you warning at dinner. You called me selfish. Ashley called me negative. Rachel said I was cruel. So I did what you wanted. I gave you space. All of it, including financial space. Brandon stood up, started pacing. Do you know what you're doing to us? Ashley and I are fighting constantly. The bank is threatening foreclosure. Emma's college fund. Stop. I stood two-faced him across my living room. I am not responsible for your financial planning. I am not responsible for the house you bought that you couldn't afford. I am not responsible for your marriage problems. You're my mother. Yes, and you're my son. But you're also a 45-year-old man with a job, a wife, children of your own. When did it become my job to fund your entire life? He stared at me like I was a stranger. When did you become so cold? I'm not cold, Brandon. I'm finally warm. I'm finally keeping some warmth for myself instead of giving it all away and freezing to death. He moved toward the door. Hand on the knob, he turned back. This isn't over, Mom. Ashley is furious. We're going to have to talk as a family about this. There's nothing to talk about. The decision is made. So that's it. You're just going to abandon us, your own grandchildren. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm freeing you to be the adults you should have become years ago. And I'm freeing myself to be something other than an ATM with feelings you find inconvenient. He left without another word, the door closing with a quiet click that sounded like an ending. I stood in my living room, legs shaking, heart pounding, waiting for guilt to flood in. It didn't come, just relief, and the strange, powerful feeling of having finally told the truth. Rachel came that same night around 9 o'clock. Her knock was softer than Brandon's, almost apologetic. I answered the door already knowing what she'd say, knowing she'd try to smooth things over, play mediator, convince me to give just a little bit more. Mom, she looked tired, older than her 42 years. Can we talk? I let her in. We sat in the kitchen this time. I made tea neither of us would drink. Michael told me what happened, she began. Brandon, I corrected automatically. What, his name is Brandon. Michael is from another story. She blinked confused, then shook her head. Right, sorry. Brandon told me about your conversation. Mom, this is getting out of hand. Is it? You can't seriously be cutting off your entire family because of one misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Rachel. It was very clearly understood. They wanted space. I gave it. But think about the kids, Mom. What about Emma and Noah? What about my kids? They love you. And I love them. But you are their parents. You're responsible for providing for them, not me. We're not asking you to provide everything. $3,000 for your kitchen remodel. $2,500 for Kyle's boot camp. $500 a month for the kids' tutoring for 6 years. That's $36,000, Rachel. Plus the wedding help, the car repair emergencies, the medical bills you said insurance didn't cover. Her face paled. You've been keeping track. I'm an accountant. I always keep track. I just never added it up before. Never wanted to see the total. Mom, this isn't fair. You make it sound like we've been using you. Haven't you been? The question hung in the air between us. Rachel opened her mouth, closed it, looked down at her untouched tea. When was the last time you called me just to talk? I asked quietly. Not to ask for something, not to tell me about a crisis you needed help with, just to ask how I was doing. Her silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. Mom, that's not fair. You know we're busy. Life is complicated. We have jobs, kids' responsibilities. And I don't at 72 working full-time to support not just myself, but 3 other families. I don't have a complicated life. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. This is cruel, Mom. Really cruel. You know what's cruel, Rachel. Realizing your children only seek you out when they need something. Seeing a green thumbs up celebrating your exclusion. Working until you're 72 to support lives that aren't yours while your own life gets smaller and smaller and smaller, that's cruel. She grabbed her purse, stood up. I'm not going to listen to this. When you've calmed down, when you're ready to be reasonable, we can talk. I am calm. I am reasonable. That's what you don't understand. This isn't an emotional outburst. It's a well-considered decision. She walked to the door, paused with her hand on the knob. You're going to regret this, Mom. When you're alone, when you need us, you're going to wish you'd handled this differently. Maybe, I said, but I'd rather be alone and at peace than surrounded by people who only value me for my bank account. The door closed behind her. I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by the silence she'd left behind, and realized something profound. I wasn't afraid of their absence anymore. I was afraid I'd wasted 15 years being present for people who'd never really seen me at all. The text came on Friday morning, exactly 4 weeks after the screenshot. Brandon, Mom, we need to talk all together. Tomorrow, Saturday, 4 p.m. at your house. It's important. Everyone will be there. Not a request, a summons. As if they had any right to demand my time, my space, my emotional energy. I could have said no, could have told them my house was no longer available for their family meetings. Instead, I replied, "Okay." I spent Friday evening preparing. Not emotionally, that work had been done in the long, quiet weeks since I'd cut them off. I prepared with evidence. I took out the gray folder, reviewed every document, every receipt, every bank statement, added Linda's email and the screenshot of Ashley's text, organized everything with tabs, Brandon Rachel shared expenses, extras manipulation, 15 years of my life condensed into paper evidence of love gone wrong. Saturday morning I cleaned my house, made it spotless, perfect, ready for whatever was coming. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. At 4 o'clock exactly the doorbell rang. I opened it to find them all there, Brandon and Ashley, Rachel, and Kyle. No children. They'd left the kids somewhere, probably didn't want witnesses to whatever intervention they'd planned. And one more person I didn't expect, Linda Patterson. She stood slightly behind the others, looking nervous but determined. When our eyes met, she gave me a small nod. My ally, my witness, my proof that I hadn't imagined Ashley's manipulation. "Come in," I said. They filed into my living room like soldiers preparing for battle. Ashley's face was tight with barely controlled anger. Brandon looked exhausted. Rachel uncertain. Kyle defensive. Linda was the last to enter. Ashley saw her and froze. "What is she doing here?" Ashley's voice was sharp, accusatory. "I invited her," I said calmly. "Sit down, all of you." They sat, but Ashley kept her eyes on Linda, who took a seat in the corner, quiet but present. Brandon spoke first, trying to take control of the situation. "Mom, this situation has become unsustainable. We've talked and we think you need to understand the damage you're causing." "Damage?" I repeated. "Tell me about that." Ashley leaned forward. "Carol." "Melissa," I corrected. "Melissa, we understand you're upset, but a family doesn't work this way. You can't just cut everything off because you had a bad day. The kids are asking for you. They want their grandmother, but you're turning your back on them." "May I speak now?" I asked pleasantly. They all nodded, probably expecting an apology, a breakdown, a plea for forgiveness. I stood up, walked to my office, returned with the gray folder. I placed it on the coffee table with a soft but firm sound. "What is that?" Rachel asked. I opened the folder, began laying out papers in neat rows like evidence in a trial. "This," I said, "is every transfer I've made in 15 years, every payment, I laid out the papers methodically like a prosecutor building a case. Each document placed with care, each number speaking its own truth. "Brandon," I said, pointing to the first stack, "here is the receipt for the $40,000 down payment I gave you in 2011. Here are the mortgage payments, $1,200 a month for 5 years. That's $72,000. I moved to the next stack. Here are the monthly transfers of $2,500 that started in 2013, $60,000 per year, times 12 years, $180,000. Brandon's face had gone white. Ashley was staring at the papers like they were accusatory ghosts. I turned to Rachel. "Kitchen remodel, $3,000. Kyle's coding boot camp, $2,500. Children's tutoring, $500 per month for 6 years. That's $36,000 accumulated. More papers. Extra expenses, birthday parties I paid for, Christmas gifts, medical emergencies that turned out to be elective procedures, car repairs, furniture, a vacation to Disney World because the kids deserved it." My voice remained steady, clinical. $37,000 in miscellaneous requests. I stepped back, gestured to the table now covered in 15 years of evidence. Total $243,000. That's what I've given you. Not loaned, given. Because you're my children, and I thought that's what love looked like. The silence was suffocating. And when I asked, not demanded, asked for you to work toward financial independence, I was called selfish, negative, toxic. I looked at each of them. You kicked me out of a family group chat. You asked me to step back. So I did. With my money. Because apparently the space you wanted included my absence, but not my wallet. Ashley found her voice first. "This is ridiculous. You're our mother. You're supposed to help us. That's what mothers do." "No, Ashley. Mothers raise their children. They teach them, love them, prepare them for independence. They don't fund their entire adult lives." I paused. And I'm not your mother." She flinched as if I'd slapped her. Brandon stood up, fists clenched at his sides. Not in violence, but in impotent frustration. "So what are we supposed to do now? How are we going to pay the mortgage? The kids' schools, everything." "You're going to do what millions of people do, Brandon. You're going to work. You're going to budget. You're going to prioritize. You're going to live within your means." "Live within our means?" Ashley's laugh was hysterical. "Do you know how much everything costs these days? You can't just expect us to survive without help." I walked toward her slowly. "Ashley, you both have good jobs. You earn enough to live. Maybe not for the house you bought. Maybe not for the lifestyle you've maintained. But to live? Yes. The problem isn't that you can't. It's that you don't want to." Her face flushed red. She wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come because she knew I was right. Rachel spoke up, voice broken. "Mom, I understand your point. I really do. But you can't expect us to change everything overnight. We need time. A transition plan. Rachel, I've been your transition plan for 15 years. How much more time do you need until I die?" "Until I have nothing left." I shook my head. "No, the transition starts today." Kyle, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. His voice was hard, accusatory. "This is revenge, pure and simple, because you got your feelings hurt by a text message. It's not revenge, Kyle. It's justice. And if you don't understand the difference, it's because you've never had to set a boundary in your life." That's when Linda stood up from her corner seat. "I need to say something." Everyone turned to look at her. Ashley's face went from red to white in an instant. "Who are you?" Brandon asked. "I'm Linda Patterson, Ashley's college roommate." She pulled out her phone. "And 6 weeks ago, Ashley told me something I think you all need to hear." "Linda, don't—" Ashley's voice was panicked, but Linda was already reading from her phone. "Ashley told me, and I quote, 'I've been training Brandon to distance from his mom since year 2. It's finally working.'" The room went absolutely still. "She said," Linda continued, her voice steady, "'the money thing is perfect leverage. We take it, then make her feel guilty for giving it. She'll pull back eventually, and when she does, we'll have the perfect excuse to cut her off. Win-win.'" Brandon turned slowly to face his wife. "Ashley, is this true?" Ashley's mouth opened and closed. "She's lying. She's making it up." Linda held up her phone. "I have the text messages, right here. Would you like to see them?" "Let me see." Brandon's voice was deadly quiet. Linda handed him the phone. He read, his face transforming from confusion to disbelief to betrayal. His hands were shaking. "You—" He looked at Ashley like he'd never seen her before. "You've been manipulating me for 13 years. Brandon, it's not like that. It says training. You wrote the word training, like I'm a dog. I was venting. I was frustrated. I didn't mean—" "You called it a plan, Ashley. You said the plan is working." "What plan?" "How long have you been scheming to push my mother out of our lives?" Ashley's face crumpled, but whether from genuine emotion or tactical tears, I couldn't tell anymore. She was always so controlling, always hovering. I was trying to give us space to be our own family. By using her money while poisoning me against her. Brandon's voice was rising. By taking everything she gave us, and then celebrating when she finally got pushed out. "You wanted it too," Ashley shot back, desperation making her voice shrill. "You complained about her just as much as I did. Because you put those thoughts in my head." He was shouting now. "God, how did I not see this?" Ashley turned to me, tears streaming. "You were never supposed to find out. You were supposed to just keep giving and stay quiet about it." The words hung in the air, the truth finally spoken plainly. She seemed to realize what she'd said. Her hand flew to her mouth, but it was too late. Brandon stared at her with something like horror. "Get out." "What? Get out of this house. We're leaving now." "Brandon, now." They left in a storm of slamming doors and Ashley's sobs. Rachel and Kyle sat frozen, looking shell-shocked. I remained standing, the evidence still spread across my coffee table, Linda beside me, like a quiet guardian angel. "Mom," Rachel whispered. "I didn't know. About Ashley's— I didn't know." "But you still used me," I said quietly. "Maybe not with Ashley's calculation, but you still called me selfish when I asked for independence. You still celebrated my exclusion with your silence." Rachel stood, Kyle following. I need to think about this. About everything. Take your time, I said. I'm not going anywhere. After they left, Linda and I stood in my living room surrounded by papers and the echoes of 15 years of mistakes finally coming to light. Thank you, I said. She squeezed my hand. You did the hard part. I just told the truth. When she left, I was alone with my evidence, my vindication, and the strange hollow feeling that comes with being right when you'd rather have been wrong. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of silence, punctuated by occasional text bombs. Brandon sent me a message 5 days after the confrontation. Mom, Ashley and I are separated. She's staying with her sister. I can't believe I was so blind. But I still can't afford the house without your help. I'm going to lose it. My response was brief. I'm sorry you're hurting, but selling the house and downsizing is part of learning to live within your means. I love you, but I can't save you from the consequences of your choices. He didn't respond. Ashley tried a different approach, legal intimidation. An email arrived from a generic address subject, "You think you won." The message was long, bitter, threatening. She claimed she'd been documenting everything for 5 years and was consulting a lawyer about filing a lawsuit. You gave that money, she wrote. You can't take it back, but I can make you regret cutting us off. I forwarded it to my sister Diane, who forwarded it to her lawyer friend. The response was quick. She has no case. Gifts can't be sued for, but document everything. Ashley never actually filed anything. It was just intimidation, the last desperate attempt to control me. It didn't work. Emma came to see me on a Thursday after school 5 weeks after everything imploded. She knocked softly. When I opened the door, she stood there with her backpack looking so much like Brandon at that age that my heart ached. Grandma, can I come in? Of course, sweetheart. We sat at the kitchen table. I made hot chocolate her favorite since childhood. We talked about school, about her friends, about college applications. Normal teenage things. No mention of money or family drama. Then she set down her mug and said, Grandma, I need to confess something. What is it, honey? Her eyes filled with tears. That $500 you gave me for my birthday, I spent $300 of it before I realized what was happening. I waited. I bought clothes, makeup, stupid stuff. I didn't even think about it because I was so used to you just giving. And then when everything exploded, when I realized what you'd been doing for us all this time, I felt sick. She was crying now. I'm not the perfect granddaughter you think I am. I'm part of the problem too. I reached across and took her hand. Emma, I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to be real. And the fact that you're telling me this, that shows more character than perfect behavior ever could. I saved the other $200, she said, pulling an envelope from her backpack. I want you to have it back. Not because I don't need it, I do, but because you need to know that I see you, that I value you, that you're more than just money to me. I pushed the envelope back gently. Keep it. Use it for something that matters. Books, maybe. Or save it for college. Are you sure? I'm sure. But Emma, I want you to remember something. Your father forgot that people aren't valued by what they can give. Don't make his mistake. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I won't, Grandma. I promise. Then she told me something that broke and healed my heart simultaneously. Dad and Mom fight every night now. Mom says Dad's weak for believing Linda. Dad says Mom destroyed our family. And Noah, she paused. Noah said yesterday, if Grandma doesn't love us, why should we love her? And nobody corrected him. The pain of that hit me physically. Oh, honey. I tried to tell him that's not how love works, that you love us, you're just not our ATM anymore. But he's 10. He doesn't get it. She looked at me with Brandon's eyes. Will Dad ever understand? I don't know, I said honestly. Some people learn, some don't. I hope your father does. But I can't wait around being hurt while he figures it out. We sat together until the sun started setting, my granddaughter and I, 2 generations trying to understand how love got confused with money and whether families could recover from that confusion. Rachel came back 2 months after the confrontation. Alone this time. No Kyle, no kids, just her. She looked different, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, but something clearer in her expression. Mom, can we talk, really talk? We sat in the living room. She took a deep breath. You were right. About everything. Her voice shook. Kyle and I did the math. Really looked at it. And we saw how much you've given us over the years, and then we counted how many times we've been there for you." She paused. "We didn't call on your birthday last year. We didn't visit when you had surgery. We weren't there on Dad's anniversary. We've been there approximately never except when we needed something. Rachel, no, let me finish. We taught our kids that Grandma exists to give, not to receive. That family is about what you can get, not what you build together. That was wrong. Deeply fundamentally wrong." She pulled out her phone, showed me a spreadsheet. "Kyle got a promotion. We're moving to a smaller apartment. We're cutting expenses. We're going to pay you back. You don't have to." "Yes, we do. Not because you're demanding it. Because we need to. We need to prove to ourselves and to you that we can be adults. That we're not just users who took advantage of your love." It wasn't a full healing. It couldn't be, not yet. But it was a beginning. A genuine beginning. December came with its usual expectation of forced family cheer. Brandon texted me 3 weeks before Christmas. "Can we do Christmas together at your place like old times? Emma and Noah really miss you. Please, Mom." I stared at that message for a long time. Talked to Diane, to Robert, to the therapist I'd finally started seeing. Everyone gave different advice, but ultimately the decision was mine. I set conditions. Yes, but some rules, no talk about money. Everyone brings their own dishes. Kids welcome. Ashley not invited. His response came quickly. "Deal, thank you, Mom." Christmas Day arrived cold and bright. Rachel's family came first, bringing food and genuine smiles. Then Brandon arrived with Emma and Noah. It was awkward at first, too polite, too careful. But gradually, as we cooked together, as the kids played, as we fell into old rhythms, something like normalcy emerged. Mid-afternoon, Brandon pulled me aside into the kitchen. "Mom, can I ask you something?" My stomach dropped. Here it comes. I need to ask for help. There it was, the test I'd been dreading. Ashley's lawyer is demanding $3,000 a month in child support. With the rent on my apartment and everything else, I can't make it work. Could you help just for 6 months until I figure things out? The kitchen suddenly felt too small. I could hear laughter from the living room, Emma telling Noah some story, Rachel's kids giggling. My heart was breaking even as my mind stayed clear. "Brandon, no. No." He looked shocked. "No, I can't. Not because I don't love you, but because helping you now would undo everything we've both learned." His face hardened. "I knew you hadn't really forgiven me. This is just punishment. You're still angry." "I'm not angry. I'm protecting us both. If I save you again, you'll never learn, and I'll never be free." "Then I guess we're done here." His voice was ice. He called to the kids. Emma and Noah were leaving. "But Dad," Emma protested. "Now!" They left. The door slammed. The warm Christmas atmosphere shattered like glass. Rachel stood in the doorway, uncertain. "Mom." "I know," I said, but it was the right thing to do. She came over and hugged me. "I know. It hurts like hell, but I know." We finished Christmas with Rachel's family, smaller, quieter, but real. No pretense, no transactions. Just people who were learning slowly what family actually meant. Spring came bringing renewal to my garden, and surprisingly to some relationships. Rachel visited weekly now. She'd paid back $5,000 over 6 months, not because I asked, but because she needed to prove something to herself. "It's symbolic," she said. "I know it doesn't cover everything, but it's me saying I'm standing on my own feet now." Our relationship was different, more honest, less about obligation, more about genuine connection. Emma came by every other week. She'd gotten a part-time job, was saving for college. She wrote her college essay about me, the woman who said no, and it earned her a scholarship. Brandon remained distant. I got updates through Emma. He was struggling but stable, working overtime, in therapy. Still bitter, still angry, but managing. Ashley had remarried quickly to someone with money. Lost partial custody when her manipulative behavior came out in court. Emma saw her every other weekend per court order. Some relationships heal. I'd started painting 6 months ago. Watercolors. Something I'd always wanted to try but never had time for when I was busy funding everyone else's dreams. The instructor, a woman in her 60s named Margaret, noticed me one day staring at my canvas. "What do you see?" she asked. "A sunset. The moment between day and night. Not an ending. a transition. Beautiful, she said. You paint with understanding. I realized I'd been painting my life. The orange and violet sky wasn't about loss. It was about transformation. That painting hung in my living room, now a reminder that endings could be beautiful if you let them be. Robert and I had coffee twice a week now. Sometimes we talked about deep things, loss, regret, the mistakes we'd made with our children. Sometimes we just sat in comfortable silence. He wasn't a replacement for anything. He was just companionship, understanding, someone who'd walked a similar path and survived. One evening, walking back from the cafe, he said, "You know what I admire about you? What you didn't just set boundaries. You rebuilt yourself. A lot of people set boundaries and then just sit in bitterness. You're actually living." It was true. I'd started keeping a journal on my therapist's recommendation. Writing helped process everything. 1 year after the screenshot, I wrote, "1 year ago today, 16 words and an emoji changed my life. I thought I was being excluded. Turns out I was being freed. I gave $243,000 over 15 years. I got loneliness and resentment. Then I gave myself boundaries, and I got life. What I've learned: 1, love without boundaries is self-destruction. 2, you can't give from an empty well. 3, some relationships are built on use, not love. 4, saying no is an act of self-love. 5, not all family is blood. Not all blood is family. Brandon is still estranged. Maybe we'll never fully heal. That hurts, but I'm learning to live with it. Rachel is rebuilding trust slowly. Emma gives me hope for the next generation. And me, I'm Melissa. Not Mom the ATM, not the savior, just Melissa. And Melissa is enough. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning 18 months after everything imploded. From brandon.harper@email.com, subject for Emma, to share. I almost deleted it. But something made me open it. "Mom, I'm writing this because my therapist said I needed to. Not for you, for me. To acknowledge things I've been avoiding. I've been in therapy for 18 months. It's helped me see the damage. Not just from Ashley. From me. I used you. I let her manipulate me because it was easier than standing up. I took your money and convinced myself I deserved it because family helps family. I'm not ready to talk yet. Maybe never. But I wanted you to know. You were right. I'm sorry. You taught me the hardest lesson: love means letting go. I'm learning to stand on my own. I hope one day I can be as brave as you were. But don't wait for me. Keep living your life. You deserve it." Brandon Natton. I read it 3 times. Felt tears fall, but they weren't sad tears. They were acceptance. Not reconciliation. Not closure. Just acknowledgement. That was enough. I stood on my balcony at sunset, watching the sky paint itself in oranges and violets. Robert knocked on my door. "Ready for dinner." I looked at the sunset one more time, that beautiful transition between what was and what would be. Then I smiled. Yes, I'm ready. Because I'd finally learned the truth that took 73 years to understand. My worth was never in what I could give. It was always just in being. And being, existing, breathing, taking up space without apology was not only enough, it was everything.